All right, well, welcome back to Exhaust Sports Auto. Very special video here thanks to Will Rodden and Capital Mazda of Cary. So once again, they've hooked me up with the CX-5 diesel, one of the first reviews basically in the United States. So huge shout out to them for hooking me up with this opportunity. I've actually already done like a little versus driving battle against this and the CX-5 Turbo, the gasoline version. So if you want to check that out, you can. But this is kind of I have a bit more perspective on this vehicle now that I've already driven it once. So I'm going to see here what this bad boy is like for a second time, basically. Now, I've already said that this vehicle is kind of for an enthusiast who appreciates Mazda as a brand. They are also a fan of diesels because people who, they buy Mazdas, they like to keep their cars for a very long time. Like people who like Mazdas, they're huge fans for life because they want to keep their vehicles. They actually might be turned on to the fact that this is a diesel and it will actually have far better longevity than, most gasoline engine vehicles out on the road today. It is a turbo diesel and does produce 168 horsepower and 290 pounds-feet of torque. So not a lot, but slightly shy of the gasoline turbo. And honestly, on the road, once you're moving, I can't really tell a huge difference. And of course, it's going to handle identical to the other CX-5s. Basically, I've driven all of the lineup, basically the non-turbo gasoline engine, which I really like, and for all things considered, that is my favorite trim because that vehicle with the 17-inch wheels, it rides the best, and it also is obviously one of the cheaper vehicles to buy. Real world fuel economy is also pretty good with that vehicle. This, you're also going to get pretty amazing real world gas mileage because obviously they're really downplaying what this engine could probably really do because they're afraid of the emissions and the whole VW scandal basically, so they're trying to avoid all that. So they're really downplaying this. I think most normal people are going to be buying this. This is pretty much going to be the best MPG out of the entire CX-5 lineup essentially. So I wouldn't be surprised there. But I think what everybody wants to know is, what's the power like in this thing? Is it really as disappointing as like what some journalists might make it out to be that have written some, columns about it? Honestly, when I put my foot into this thing, it picks up and goes almost similar to the gasoline turbo. I said this in the other video I already did, featuring this versus the CX-5 gasoline turbo, and the power is really good, honestly. It's just from a dig, it's just like there's a slight lag, I guess, but like once that thing is spooled up and it's ready to go, basically you burst off in this, similar to a CX-5 turbo gasoline version. And the 6-speed automatic, of course, is eager to kick down because it has the correct amount of gears. There's no gear hunting with it. It'll pretty much do what you ask it to do, essentially. And another thing that's kind of underrated with these vehicles, even I kind of forget to mention this, but the brake feel in this is fantastic. It's a very natural feel, and also, more importantly though, the brakes don't just like shoot you right through the front windshield, basically. You stop really well, and it's almost something similar to what the Genesis G80 does. You stop really well, but the sensation of braking is just, it isolates you, but you have a lot of confidence in the braking power of this. And I'm going to show you here kind of what I mean when you kind of put your foot into it. It's a slow start at the beginning, but once you get up past like 3,500 RPM, you really start moving in this thing. Similar to the other gas models, honestly. Obviously, the smoothness or refinement, that's going to be the same across the board, the road noise and all that. One thing I'm not a fan of, because you only get this as a signature trim, like a fully loaded model, basically, you're forced to deal with the 19-inch wheels, basically. And yeah, sure, they look pretty cool, but it's not ideal for the ride quality because Mazda already doesn't have the best ride quality because they focus so much on basically the driving dynamics of these vehicles. Their suspension is definitely a little bit more on the firmer side, basically. That's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that this thing rides like a truck or something like that because it's still a smooth and rather compliant ride. It's just compared to the other vehicles like RAV4s and the Kia vehicles, I guess, it doesn't ride as softly as those vehicles, but for people who love driving, it won't bother them at all, actually, not one bit. And I've mentioned this multiple times, the smoothness of this diesel is just next level. You actually don't even know that you're in a diesel, actually. It feels like a gasoline vehicle. It doesn't even sound that ridiculous. There's no vibrations that come through the cabin. It feels pretty much identical to driving a gasoline-powered vehicle. So It's not something that you have to get used to. There's no weirdness with it. It's just the one thing is, you have to deal with an extra little maintenance item, and that is putting the urea, ammonia thing, whatever, every about 9 to 10,000 miles, the AdBlue basically, to help break down the nitrogen oxide elements basically that comes from this, diesel powertrain, I guess. And that urea is basically just like carbon dioxide and H2O water mixed together, helps break down the nitrogen oxide. Basically, that's pretty much what that's there for emissions essentially, and to make it a far cleaner vehicle. So that's just the one thing you have to keep in mind with this. Basically, for every 2 oil changes, you just need to put in some of this urea stuff. Yeah, once that thing is shifted into gear properly, yeah, it's fantastic. I think a lot of people are going to love this. Great sensation of speed, pretty fun to drive, handles identical to the other CX-5 models, and that is a fantastic thing for sure. And yeah, this thing does come with the all-wheel drive as standard because it's a signature model, so very similar to buying a CX-5 turbo gasoline model. You are going to get this all-wheel drive, and it definitely does help grip the vehicle, but like I was saying with the gasoline turbo, I think the all-wheel drive obviously saps some power out of it, which is kind of why I don't really think that the CX-5 turbo is really that awe-inspiring of a vehicle to drive. I don't really think it's like a rocket ship or anything by any means. I thought that the Mazda 6 turbo was, because it was only front-wheel drive, and it's actually sending all that power down to just the front wheel, so you're getting more of that power. And it would kind of, spin the front tires, and that was a lot more fun. The CX-5, plenty of grip, so that's fantastic. Steering feel identical, and it's amazing. I love this electric steering rack. It's just a very natural, smooth driving experience that nobody should have any real complaints with, essentially. And I like the way that how this transmission is programmed. It kind of like holds the RPMs nicely, so that's pretty good. It just kind of does what you expect and what you want it to do. So that's really fantastic. Mazda kind of nailed that. After all, they're all about driving, right? So I'm not too surprised with that. Yeah, so as a whole, in conclusions, really awesome driving experience. I really appreciate Capital Mazda for giving me this opportunity. And I'm going to kind of show you guys a little quick overview of the interior. Nothing too crazy because I've already reviewed this car twice already, so you can watch those other 2 reviews for more information on the interior and all that good stuff. And yeah, I'm going to show you the boot space as well, the trunk, I guess. And yeah, we'll move forward from there. Alrighty then, well, hopping inside the CX-5 diesel interior, identical to the turbo, and without wasting any time, I'm going to turn this vehicle on because it's like 100 degrees outside. So, with that, yeah, this exact same interior color, layout, everything to that CX-5 turbo gasoline model over there. It's a phenomenal interior, like I mentioned, like about 7,000 times now. You've bought an Audi when you're sitting in this thing. It's identical to that feeling. The fit and finish of everything is identical to that vehicle. The steering wheel even is very Audi-like. So it's fantastic, basically. Like I said, you're getting an Audi without the badge snobbery that goes with an Audi, so that's great. Pretty much anybody who tries this vehicle out, you're automatically going to be able to just fall in love with this thing like I have. I mean, I've driven some prestigious vehicles as of recently, and honestly, like, I keep going back to the CX-5. I really appreciate the way this thing drives and feels, both driving-wise and interior-wise. I mean, the layout is excellent. The materials are great. Not going to dwell on this too long because it's identical to that car. The only difference is, though, you lose out on the sport toggle switch here, but that's about it. You guys still have the climate control separate from the screen, which is great. You do get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto with this vehicle. You do have this digital gauge cluster for just the speedometer, but that's about it. It's fantastic. This vehicle is so smooth, you forget you're in a diesel, honestly. It idles just fine. Actually, I like the idle tone to this vehicle. Actually, it's slightly different, and I appreciate that. You still get this traditional gear shifter, which I'll always love, and one-touch auto. Window switches for all 4 corners. Superb. You do get this heads-up display, which I failed to mention in the turbo model over there, but it does have it. It's pretty clear, even at night. It's pretty fantastic. Very similar to the Kia stuff, honestly. So if you like that, there you go. There it is there. If you want to turn it off, though, kind of have to go through the infotainment and stuff like that. You can't. There's no physical button to turn that off if you so choose. Other thing is, of course, memory seats, electric seats for both front and passengers. Storage space is pretty ample, of course, spot for your phone. Glove box is nice, cup holders are great size, and you have enough space in the side pockets for large drinks, which is excellent. So with that, let's go ahead and let's look at that rear seats and the trunk. Okay, now stepping inside the rear, so vehicle is set to basically my driving position. I guess it's a little bit closer, but still my knees obviously still touching up against this. I mean, this is really the only actual con with this vehicle, not a huge amount of rear leg space, but obviously being an SUV, head space, not an issue. You can be like a giraffe and not really be touching the ceiling of this. So that's pretty good. Of course, the quality still continues. Excellent leather quality of the seats though. That's fantastic. And you do get ventilation, of course, is identical. All of this is identical to that vehicle over there. So that's not too bad. Again, watch that video for more information. Now, let's go ahead and check out that trunk. Okay, so as we approach the trunk here, I can see the little signature badging and the all-wheel drive with the SkyActiv D badge, of course, very important. And you can open up the trunk in 3 different ways, of course, the button inside the vehicle and this key fob, of course. You can also close the trunk with this key fob as well, which is nice. And it's an electronic tailgate, but honestly, it doesn't open up that slowly. It's actually pretty good, so I don't mind that at all. And I've said this in the other CX-5, of course, the trunk space in here actually really good, honestly. It's so good, in fact, that they can actually probably move the seats back a little bit, give the passengers more rear leg space, and decrease kind of the trunk space here, I guess, because this is very cavernous. So this vehicle is great if you only have kids, and if you don't have kids, if you hate all of your friends and you don't mind putting them in a compromised position in the back, I think you're gonna love this, because you personally have a ton of space to put all your things back here. And that's really all that matters at the end of the day. You, the driver, the person who bought the car, that's what matters. So you get a fantastic driving vehicle, you get a pretty fuel efficient vehicle with this diesel, and it sounds pretty cool. And you're gonna be able to appreciate the longevity of this motor. You're gonna be able to take all your things for a very long time in the back of this, and you can annoy your passengers by putting them in a slightly smaller, cramped space in the back. Also, you get a full-size spare in the rear, which is absolutely fantastic. So I do like that, but because of that spare, there's not a ton of storage space underneath there, if you know what I mean. That's something to note, but I would rather have the spare tire there. So with that pretty much concludes the drive, the interior, and the trunk space. Let's go ahead and let's wrap this review up. Okay, so what are my overall thoughts on the diesel? Is it worth it? Because it does cost about 4 G's more than that vehicle behind me. Well, if you're looking into this, you are most likely a Mazda enthusiast. You love Mazdas so much, and you may also be a person who would like to keep their vehicles for like a decade, maybe even longer. So in that case, the best Mazda for longevity, without a doubt, is going to be a diesel vehicle for sure. Diesels just always outlast gasoline powered vehicles. It's just the nature of those vehicles. And also, this is a pretty low compression diesel engine, which is the opposite of their high compression SkyActiv gasoline vehicle. So that's another thing to note. But also, it drives natural. It feels, honestly, on certain occasions, you're paying attention to the engine. You kind of hear it idle. You kind of move up a little bit in traffic by giving it some throttle. That's the only time you kind of hear that unique diesel sound. But honestly, I personally think it's very cool. And I think most people won't even mind it or even notice it, honestly. So you basically get all the benefits of a diesel engine, like great fuel economy, because in real world testing, I'm sure this would do fantastic. I just don't have enough time to do a lot of fuel economy tests with this vehicle. It's not my vehicle, it's Capital Mazda's. That vehicle, foot to the floor all the time, getting like 19 mpg, but you can probably see about 5 mpg better because you're probably a normal human driving it. This, in real world, you should be getting like close to 30 mpg even in the city. So that's something to know. If you do a lot of highway driving, you'll be able to appreciate even further fuel economy gains. The thing with this diesel, if you're looking at it, you only have one option, Signature with the all-wheel drive. You're gonna get these 19 inches on here. So that's something to know. Identical to that Signature over there. It's just that this engine is gonna be a different turbo than that. But I think a lot of people, they're concerned, is 168 horsepower enough? Is 290 foot-pounds of torque? Because you can get the standard gasoline power engine and almost get like 20 horsepower better than this. So would you do it? Honestly, I like the power delivery of this a lot. If you drive it, I think you'll pretty much share my same sentiments. Like, honestly, when you punch this thing, it almost moves like that vehicle behind me. Like, it's almost 95% there. And the only time, like I mentioned this before, that first initial tip in with the throttle, that's the only time you get like this lag. But otherwise, once you're up and moving, you have an excellent amount of power, and you just kind of, it kind of goes like a turbo vehicle. I mean, it's really fantastic. I don't think a lot of people should have any issues with power with this thing. But if you're in the area, definitely check out these vehicles, you know, for yourself. But huge shout out to Capital Mazda for letting me do this review, basically. I mean, this is a huge honor because I think I'm one of the first few people to do this diesel review. So if you appreciate this, you know, definitely check them out. I'll leave all their information, you know, Will Rodden's information, phone numbers, website, all that good stuff. But yeah, fantastic car. Drives like the other CX-5s in the lineup. It's quiet, feels luxurious, feels like a tank, honestly, like a German car. You're basically getting an Audi here without the badge snobbiness of an Audi, essentially. So if you can appreciate that, I think you will love this diesel CX-5. So thank you very much for watching. Take care and goodbye.